everyone. Let's dive into those videos you shared about diabetes reversal. We've got a lot to unpack, expert talks, personal stories, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, it's great you found so many different perspectives.
It is, but, it can get a bit overwhelming trying to piece it all together, right?
Absolutely, that's what we're here for.
Exactly. So let's cut through the noise and focus on the actionable stuff, things you can actually use. And one of the biggest aha moments for me while watching those videos was, well, this idea that diabetes itself isn't the real problem. It's more like a symptom.
It's like the tip of the iceberg, really.
Yes. And the real culprit, the underlying issue, is often this thing called insulin resistance.
And that's where things get interesting, because it changes how we think about this whole thing, how we approach it.
Totally. It's not just about cutting out sugar, although that's definitely part of the puzzle. It's about how our bodies process all food, how they use insulin to unlock energy from that food.
And insulin, well, it's such a key player in this whole process, isn't it?
It really is. One expert used an analogy that I thought was super helpful. Imagine your cells have these tiny little doors, right? And insulin is like the key that unlocks those doors to let sugar in.
Oh, I like that. It's like a key to energy, basically.
Exactly. So with insulin resistance, it's like those locks are getting rusty or maybe jammed, like they're not working as smoothly as they should be.
It's like the key is struggling to fit in the lock. And one of the main culprits behind those jammed locks, often it's this buildup of excess fat around the cells.
Ah, so that's where the whole fat connection comes into play.
Exactly. And that's why, even if you're avoiding the obvious sugar bombs, other foods can still contribute to this issue if they're throwing your insulin out of whack.
So it's not just about what we eat, but also how our bodies are responding on a deeper level, on a cellular level.
Absolutely. It's about understanding the bigger picture here, how our metabolism works, how our bodies use insulin effectively.
Okay, so we've got insulin resistance as our prime suspect. But how do we know if it's happening in our own bodies? Like, what are the warning signs? What should we be looking out for?
That's the key question, right? And a lot of those videos you shared highlighted the importance of testing, of really understanding the numbers.
Because you can feel fine, but those numbers might tell a different story.
Exactly. And they were very clear that it's not enough to just rely on that standard blood sugar test.
Right, because that's just like a snapshot in time. It's not giving you the full picture.
It's like looking at a single frame of a movie, you're missing a lot of context.
So what tests should we be asking our doctors about? What can give us a more complete picture?
Well, one they mentioned a lot was the fasting insulin test.
Okay, so tell me more about that. What does that one tell us?
So it measures how much insulin your body is producing when you haven't eaten in a while. Basically, it's checking your baseline. Ideally, you want that number to be below 6.
Below 6, got it. And if it's higher, what does that mean?
Well, it could mean your body's working overtime, pumping out extra insulin just to keep your blood sugar in check.
Because your cells aren't responding to it as well as they should be.
Exactly. They're becoming resistant. So your pancreas is like, okay, I need to produce more insulin, just to get the job done.
Wow, it's like your body is stuck in overdrive, even when it's supposed to be resting and refueling.
Exactly. And over time, that can take a toll. Speaking of red flags, there were also some stories about people getting caught off guard by their HbA1c results.
Oh, yeah, that one came up a lot, didn't it? The HbA1c. What exactly does that test tell us? I know it has to do with blood sugar, but...
Right. So that basic blood sugar test, that's just a snapshot in time. But the HbA1c, that gives us a broader view. It's like a blood sugar report card for the past 2 to 3 months.
So it's showing your average blood sugar levels over time.
Exactly. It's giving you a more accurate picture of what's happening long term.
And what's interesting is that people were talking about their HbA1c suddenly spiking, even though they thought they were being healthy.
It's a good reminder that things aren't always as they seem, right?
Right. You might think you're doing all the right things, but those numbers, they can reveal a different story.
They can. And early detection is key here. The sooner you know something's off, the sooner you can take action.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, right?
100%. And it's not just about blood sugar. Another important test they mentioned was the HSCRP.
The what now?
HSCRP. It stands for highly sensitive C-reactive protein. It's a measure of inflammation in the body.
Okay. Inflammation. Now, how does that tie into everything we've been talking about?
Well, remember how we talked about excess fat inside those muscle cells being linked to insulin resistance?
Yeah, like it's gumming up the works.
Exactly. Well, inflammation is often the culprit behind that fat buildup.
Ah, so it's like a chain reaction. Inflammation leads to insulin resistance, which can then lead to, well, a whole cascade of health issues, including diabetes.
Precisely. It's like a domino effect.
So managing inflammation is key. It's not just about managing blood sugar. It's about addressing those underlying causes, those triggers.
You got it. It's about taking a holistic approach, looking at the bigger picture.
Okay, so we've got the detective work down. We know what to look for. Now let's talk strategy. What can we actually do to fight back against this insulin resistance and get those numbers moving in the right direction?
Now we're talking. That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And those videos you shared, they had the really great advice, especially when it comes to diet.
Yeah, the food piece is always a big one.
It is, but it's not about deprivation. It's not about these crazy restrictions.
As nobody wants to be miserable while trying to be healthy.
Exactly. It's about making smart choices that work with your body, not against it, right? Finding a balance that feels good, that feels sustainable.
Sustainable. I like that. Because so many diets, they feel so restrictive. Like, who can live like that long term?
Right. These experts were all about making gradual shifts, not these drastic overhauls. Like one strategy they talked about, the 25% formula for balanced meals.
25% formula. Okay, tell me more. That sounds intriguing.
It's this visual tool that helps you rethink how you're building your plate. So picture this. You divide your plate into 4 equal sections. One section that's your grains, your rice, your roti, that kind of thing. Another section that's for dal or your protein source. Then you've got a section for cooked veggies and another for a nice big portion of salad.
I'm already feeling more balanced just hearing that. So it's about reducing those grain portions, not ditching them altogether.
Exactly. It's a gentle shift, not a complete overhaul. And if you're finding yourself craving more grains, you just make sure you're matching it with equal amounts of the other components, right? More veggies, more salad, more protein. It's all about balance.
I love that. It's a built-in reminder to prioritize those nutrient-packed foods that are going to keep you feeling full and satisfied.
Exactly. Yeah. And within each of those categories, grains, protein, veggies, all that, there are some finer points to keep in mind. Let's talk about sugar, for example.
Oh, the sugar. Everyone's favorite topic.
Right. But here's the thing. The experts were very clear about seeing through those healthy sugar alternatives that are everywhere these days.
Oh, yeah, those sneaky sweeteners. It's so easy to think something is better for you just because it's marketed that way.
Right. But the truth is, whether it's jaggery, coconut sugar, honey, even honey, these options, they can still spike your blood sugar.
It's like they're all leading back to the same path, just dressed up a little differently.
Precisely. So the key takeaway here is moderation. Enjoy those sweeteners mindfully. Be present with them. But don't fool yourself into thinking they're a free pass when it comes to blood sugar.
Got it. And it's not just those obvious sugar bombs, right? Those desserts and sugary drinks. We're talking added sugar lurking in all sorts of places.
Absolutely. It's hiding in places you wouldn't expect. Sauces, salad dressings, processed foods. Those experts, they stressed becoming a labeled detective.
Read those labels, people.
Yes. The more you know about what's actually in your food, the better choices you can make.
Okay, so sugar, enjoy it mindfully, but don't be tricked by marketing hype. Got it. Now, what about all those healthy grains that are so popular these days? Quinoa, millets, barley, those seem like a no-brainer for blood sugar balance.
You'd think so, right? I mean, they're definitely packed with nutrients. But here's where it gets interesting. Even within the healthy grain category, there are nuances to consider.
Oh, really? So it's not as straightforward as it seems?
Not always. For example, these experts, they specifically called out ragi, finger millet, as a potential issue for some people.
Gee, I thought that was like the diabetes superfood.
It is. I mean, it's highly nutritious, no doubt.
Right.
But it turns out that ragi can actually have a higher glycemic index than some other millets.
Oh, wow. So even though it's considered a healthy grain, it can still impact blood sugar.
Exactly. And the experts shared some cases where people actually saw their diabetes worsen, even though they were eating a lot of ragi.
Wow, that's a good reminder that there are always exceptions to the rule. What works for one person might completely backfire for another.
It's true. It's all about paying attention to your body, seeing how it responds, and then adjusting accordingly.
Okay, so it's millets, but with a careful eye. Got it. Now on to the great oil debate. What's the verdict there? Which oils should we be using?
Well, the key takeaway here was definitely quality over quantity. These experts, they were big proponents of choosing cold-pressed, unrefined oils over their refined counterparts.
Yeah, they weren't fans of those refined oils, were they?
Not really. They talked about how the refining process, it can strip away some of those beneficial nutrients, and sometimes it might even introduce harmful compounds. So sticking with those traditional, minimally processed oils is generally a safer bet.
Back to basics. I like it. Keeps things simple.
Right. It does.
Now, what about ghee? That's another one where there always seems to be a lot of back and forth about whether it's good for you or not.
Ghee is a tricky one, especially when we're talking about cholesterol. And these experts, they didn't really sugarcoat it. They were very clear that ghee can potentially raise cholesterol levels.
They didn't beat around the bush. They just came right out and said it.
Exactly. Their advice, if you've got high cholesterol, fatty liver, or you're already dealing with weight issues or diabetes, it's best to avoid ghee, at least for a while.
So it's another one of those things that might be perfectly fine for some, but for others, especially those managing blood sugar, it's best to be cautious.
Absolutely. Again, it goes back to knowing your own body and what works best for you. And along those lines, they also had some interesting things to say about dairy.
Oh, dairy. That's another one where I feel like I hear so much conflicting information. What was their take?
So they actually recommended a temporary break from all dairy products. That includes milk, yogurt, buttermilk, even paneer.
Wow, a complete dairy detox. That seems pretty intense. What was their reasoning behind that?
They explained that milk products, they contain certain compounds that can sometimes interfere with how well insulin does its job. And this can be especially true for people who already have diabetes or who are at risk of developing it.
So it's not that dairy is inherently bad, but it might be worth hitting the pause button for a little while to see if it makes a difference in how your body's responding.
Exactly. It's like an experiment, Take a break from dairy for a couple of months, then reintroduce it slowly and pay attention to how you feel. You might be surprised at the difference it makes.
That's a really good point. It's all about finding what works for you. Now, we've covered sugar, grains, oils, ghee, and dairy. What about fruit? I know fruit is something you're passionate about, those naturally sweet treats.
Oh, I love fruit. And they're packed with so many good things, nutrients, antioxidants, fiber. But as we've been discussing, sugar is still sugar, even when it comes from fruit. So the key here, according to those experts, is to be mindful of the type of fruit you're eating and the amount. And they talked about using the glycemic index, or GI, as a guide.
So lower GI fruits are generally a better bet.
Exactly. Lower GI fruits like berries, apples, cherries, they release sugar into your bloodstream more slowly, which can help prevent those blood sugar spikes.
What about higher GI fruits? Are those completely off limits?
Not necessarily off limits.
Yeah.
But they're best enjoyed in moderation, especially if you're just starting to manage your blood sugar. So fruits like watermelon, pineapple, ripe jackfruit, mangoes, bananas, things like lychees and grapes, chikus.
Yeah.
Those were all higher on the glycemic index.
So again, it's all about being strategic, finding that sweet spot where you can still enjoy those delicious flavors without sending your blood sugar on a roller coaster ride.
Exactly. It's all about balance, as we've been saying.
It's like they kept saying, listen to your body. It's trying to tell you what it needs. And we've covered a lot, from sugar to grains, dairy, all that good stuff. But these videos, they went beyond just food. They also had some really interesting stuff about exercise and how that plays into all of it.
It's all connected, right?
Exactly.
Food is fuel. But how we move our bodies, that plays a huge role in how that fuel gets used, how it impacts ourselves.
And I think a lot of people, myself included, we might assume that just walking is enough. Like, if we're getting our steps in, we're good.
Right. That's the general idea a lot of times.
Yeah, but these experts, they kind of challenged that assumption. They were saying that to really make a dent in something like diabetes reversal, we need to think beyond just walking.
Yeah, walking is great, don't get me wrong, but they were really emphasizing the importance of strength training, specifically anti-gravity exercises.
Anti-gravity. That sounds kind of intense. What does that even mean?
Well, basically, it just means any exercise where you're working against gravity.
Yeah.
So things like squats, lunges, push-ups, anything where you're lifting your own body weight or using resistance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're actually defying gravity or anything.
No. Although that would be pretty cool.
Right. Sign me up for that.
But basically, these exercises, they force your muscles to work harder. And that's a good thing because it helps your muscles pull in glucose more effectively.
So even if your insulin isn't working as well as it should, these exercises can help compensate.
Exactly. It's like giving your insulin a helping hand.
I like that. So what are some examples of anti-gravity exercises that we can try?
Well, like I said, squats, lunges, push-ups are great. You can also do things like planks, wall sits, even just lifting some weights or resistance bands.
So you don't necessarily need a gym membership to do this.
Nope. You can do a lot of these exercises right at home with minimal equipment.
That's good news. And they emphasized that it's not just about forcing yourself to do exercises you hate. It's about finding something you enjoy, right?
100%. Because
Yeah.
if you don't like it, you're not going to stick with it. So if squats aren't your thing, find something else. Maybe it's dancing, swimming, hiking, whatever brings you joy.
Yeah, make it fun.
Exactly. Make movement a part of your life that you look forward to, not another chore on your to-do list.
Okay, so we've covered diet, we've talked about exercise, but these videos also went a bit deeper, right? They talked about the mind-body connection and how important that is for overall health.
Absolutely. It's all connected, right?
Yeah, it really is.
And these experts, they shared some really interesting research about how chronic stress can actually worsen insulin resistance.
Yeah, stress is no joke.
It's not. It's like this domino effect. Stress leads to inflammation. Inflammation messes with your insulin sensitivity.
Mm.
And then, before you know it, you're on this fast track to a whole bunch of health issues.
So managing stress, finding healthy ways to de-stress, it's not just some luxury, it's crucial for our well-being.
Exactly. And there are so many different ways to do it. Meditation, yoga, spending time in nature, even just listening to your favorite music. Find what works for you and make it a part of your routine.
Give yourself permission to unwind and de-stress. Your body will thank you. And sometimes, it's not just about what we do individually, it's about reaching out for support when we need it.
Absolutely. And that's something else those experts really emphasized, that diabetes reversal, this isn't a solo mission. It takes a village.
Having that support system in place, whether it's your doctor, a nutritionist, a therapist, maybe a support group, or even just friends and family who get it, that can make such a difference.
100%. It's about surrounding yourself with people who empower you to take control of your health, to make positive changes.
All right.
Because let's face it, reversing diabetes, it can be tough. It's a journey, right?
It is.
But these experts, they were so optimistic, so hopeful. They kept saying it's not a life sentence. It's an opportunity.
It is. It's a chance to take control, to really redefine what health means for you.
And, after this deep dive, I really believe that. It's inspiring.
Me too. There's so much we can do. So there you have it, your own personal deep dive into diabetes reversal, all distilled from those amazing videos you shared. We've covered a lot of ground insulin resistance, the tests, the strategies for diet, exercise, stress management. But remember, this is just the beginning. Keep learning, keep experimenting, and most importantly, keep believing in your body's incredible ability to heal and thrive.